Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Not Another Rangers podcast. It's your Friday night edition, and we are delighted to be back to talk about the next Old Firm game. I was talking just before we come on, and William said to me he's tried to think about it since Monday, so it's his last pod, so we're going to get him delving back into a little bit about the past, but mostly about the game on Sunday coming forward. So it's good to be back. It's not often you have two Old Firm games in the space of a week. It's not often there's been so much of a headlines about one that actually wasn't to do necessarily with fully refereeing decisions. So we will look back in some of the horrors, some of the joys of that week and of that game, and obviously highlight where we're going to go on Sunday and what changes you should make and what you should do and what you should do differently. Whether you just do it for 90 minutes rather than 55 minutes, or how easy it'll be and what it means if things go well or if things go badly. I think that's the plan for the next little bit of time. Before I start, Ricky is unwell, unfortunately, so get well soon, Ricky. I think he's a bit of an allergic reaction. He says he's got a face like the Elephant Man, I think, or something like that, Scott, was it? I can't really remember the wording. But hopefully he gets well soon.
Not a lot changing for Ricky, is there?
But we do wish him well, and hopefully he's back again on Monday. William, so what we have an able deputy, an able stand-in. So from the Northern Ireland Bears, hands across the water. Welcome, William. Good to see you back on again.
Oh, very welcome, mate. Thank you very much for bringing me on again, and thoughts are Ricky as well, mate. Hopefully you get better soon, mate. That's what happens when you slag people's accents and stuff. It comes back to haunt you in the end.
And it's all allegedly. I don't actually know fully what's wrong. I did see a allergic reaction. I didn't read it properly, so hopefully it's nothing too serious. In case it turns out I've said something bad there. And Scott, how are you?
I'm not bad, Gary. I'm actually the biggest problem I've got, Gary, for the weekend is trying to find a parking space.
Aye, I know. We'll come into that in a little bit of time. Do you know
what I mean? But apart from that, I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm not really got any issues leading up to the game. Apart from it's going to be my difficult part in the car because I can't park where I usually park.
So I missed the episode. I wasn't available during the week, so I watched obviously Scott and Ricky perform, and I thought, and Ricky, Scott has obviously been on the happy pills. He was celebrating a Rangers title victory on the way incoming. It was all much positivity. I thought, well, I must be listening to the wrong show. I had to turn it off and put it back on again to see what was happening. So it looks at Friday night, he's smiling, he's happy again, he's ready to go, aren't you? And you're looking forward to Sunday. So it's good to see, Scott. We're not going to have any negative comments from you over the course of the next 45 minutes an hour, then, is it?
That can change very quickly, Gary. That can change very quickly.
Good. So it's been a strange week. Do you know, it's just, there's been lots. In fact, I've just seen a comment there, do you know, bizarrely, I'm just going to pick up this. Alexander saying, does Kelly play on Sunday? I don't think it's a debate to play the best team, in Butland. For me, is your first choice keeper. It's different in games against Allo or whoever else it was he played Queen's Park, but in a cup game, cup quarter final, William, do you have any doubt that it will be Butland as opposed to Kelly?
No, I would say it'll probably just be Butland, mate. But I know Kelly does play in a lot of the cup games, but as you say, mate, he'd probably not want to, especially after, you know, everyone's feelings after last Sunday, so he'd probably not want to go with a different keeper. But I'll tell you one thing, if Butland doesn't start, I'll not miss those kickouts. We'll speak about it later, those kickouts from 55 minutes all over the bloody place for 45 minutes. But, so if I'm not looking at that, I'll not be too disheartened. But when it comes to penalties, as well as the commenter said there, you know, with Butland's good when it comes to saving the penalties and stuff. So I would say he'll probably start, mate.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And we'll come down. We'll look at team news and things like that as we go on later on. We've got a fully fit squad apparently, so we'll pick up on that. I suppose, William. So I've not seen you. I've heard Ricky and Scott's take on it, and I'm going to take you back to Sunday. So Sunday at 1:15 potentially. Sunday at 1:45. Two totally different feelings, and then for the next 5 days afterwards. How have you been?
You know what? It's an Old Firm game coming up, mate, and you should be buzzing, you know, and I'm sure it'll come, but I'm still feeling like that. I'm just so, like, zoned out, you know, because I'm still fatigued after being so high in that first half to so low in the second. And to be fair, Gary, it wasn't even the fact that they come back to draw, because that can happen. It was the fact that we played so well and then just threw everything away that we were doing good at the start, and for 45 minutes allowed them, well, it was 45. You take the 40 plus the 5 minutes injury time. We allowed them to dominate us at Ibrox Park, and it was really. I think that's what's paid off myself and everyone else, supporters wise, because we can understand Martin O'Neill's not an idiot. He's a good manager. He's going to sort things out at half time and get his team coming out better. That's fine. But I was expecting far better from ourselves. Do you know what I mean? They at least, even if they had 20 minutes and they got the goal from Tierney and it was a wee bit shaky, then we would start to grow ourselves into the game. And that never happened. And I think that's what the most annoying thing has been, Gary, for myself and you guys, everyone watching. So that was the disheartening part. So it's trying to get yourself up for Sunday now and hopefully the team do the same. But yeah, a bit disheartening, mate, to see us collapse like we did.
Yeah. I suppose on that, Scott, it's quite interesting. So last Friday night, if that's the title of Katy Perry song, if I remember rightly, but last we did the preview pod and we were really excited for the game. At the come the end of it, we were reliving old firm goals from back in the 40s from you right through to the 90s and 2000s from other people. And we were really getting in the mood. So kind of the battle fever was on and stuff like that. It's been a kind of strange week because it's been so much disappointment from what was a 2-2 result. To the enthusiasm for Sunday doesn't appear to be there yet. I don't know if that's the way you've kind of came across the stuff you read, the stuff you've listened to, the podcast, everything it's been about.
I think it's been strange this week, Gary. I think there's been a lot of doom and gloom, being honest with you, a lot of unfair criticism at times. Some of it is fair, some of it I would say unfair. And I think it's probably because the way the draw happened, you had the first half and the half time, everybody was up and celebrating and stuff like that and thinking we're going to go and score 3, 4, 5, and then the final whistle, you're like, what actually happened? We were leading quite comfortably and then we scraped a draw. So I can see why people were deflated at the end. And at half time, I didn't manage last week because I wasn't feeling great, and at half time I was gutted because I wasn't there, but at full time I was like, I was getting myself, thank God I was in the house because I'd have been shouting and bawling. But I think sometimes you've got to look back and say, listen, we've been to worse games like this. We've been to games where we've done that as well. I think back to the game under Clermont, we were 2-0 down, we drew 3 each. And we were coming away from that thinking, we've done really well here to get back to 3 each, and Matondo's goal was goal of the season for Rangers TV, do you know that way? But I think it's just different. I think it was because the league title race, because Hearts are sitting top, 6 points clear, within claw any points back. But I think it's also just by the fact that we drew points against Livingston, drew points against Motherwell and stuff. So I think it's just all in the game last weekend. I think it's all these things put together has made everybody kind of more looking at it from a point of view where we're not going to win this title. I think that's what people's looking at it. I don't think it's so much that game. I think it's just everything combination.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right. Obviously, I was at the game last week, so I just didn't have the chance to give any views. So I'm up in the Broomland as a Scot. So probably witnessed the best Old Firm goal that I've ever seen live in person. Looking right down on it as the ball came across from Scott Wilson. Me and my daughter, I'm saying to him, leave it, because the guy, I think it came out Romans or whoever's behind it. And then all of a sudden the ball's rattled into the back of the net, and the jubilation, I think, that was hugging your 2 sisters, Scott. Do you know, whoever was jumping about, the place was absolutely buzzing. And the first 45 minutes was probably the best I've seen Rangers play. Do you know, in an Old Firm game in years? Do you know what I mean? I'm not talking just probably since back 15, 20 years, I'd imagine. Really, I was trying to think back of other games, William, that we played better in that first 45 minutes. Actually dominated them. They couldn't get a hold of the ball. We were physically bullying them, do you know, and pressing and all stuff that goes with it, do you know. And I said to my daughter at one point, maybe 40 minutes in, when Fernandez misses that header, do you know, you just get a third goal and you kill the game. Because there was always that still. Because they would get too many set pieces, there's always a chance to get an opportunity. But that first half was probably as good as we possibly could play, and have played all season.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that was the team I I didn't predict it. It was the team I wanted to start the game. So that's what I put up in our pod just before the match kicked off. So and then obviously when the team news came out. So it was the team I wanted. It came out and they were very, very good, mate. As you say there, the first half we were all over them. Alexander, your man, what is it, Chamberlain or whatever you call him, a bit of a non-event. He was meant to be the big wig coming into this fixture and had to be hooked off because Rangers were absolutely fantastic in all departments. I think Nadiri and Chermiti working together, I mean, especially Nadiri's work off the ball, and we were pushing them back. Tierney couldn't get couldn't get himself out of his position. McGregor couldn't dictate the play like he's done so many times before, because we were just all over them, mate, and we took our chances really well. Like that first goal, it was one of those ones. No matter where you watched it, it was like hands in the head, in total shock of what had just happened. The second goal was just as good, if we're being honest. If you look at that individual play, mate, absolutely fantastic. And as you say, everyone was up, and we were thinking, right, we're going to hammer them now. Times are changing in Glasgow. You usually get carried away. Rangers do this, do you? They get you carried away and then quickly drop you or bring you back to earth again. But yeah, so I'd say that first half performance was absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, Gary. It's how are we going to counteract that second half performance, because there's no chance Martin O'Neill's going to go with the same team he started with last week. He'll be ringing the changes in early. It'll be interesting to see what Danny Rohl does to combat that.
Yeah. And I suppose there's been lots of talk, Scott, about the fact that the first half was so good. First 55 minutes was so good. And Trolley Robbins and we had a couple of other chances early in the second half to kill the game as well. And then the drop-off, obviously, momentum's a big thing in football. Celtic get a goal, or they get a bit of pressure, they get a goal, and then we kind of lose the head a little bit. And how much of that's to do with momentum, how much to do with fitness, and how much to do with tactics. There's been lots of talk about Danny Rohl not being able to make the right substitutions, lots of talk over the week about the fact that some of the players were spent, the fact that we weren't able to combat their tactical changes, all the stuff that goes with it. What do you put it down to? Because to me, you can see some players were running empty after an hour, but at the same time, it wasn't world-beating stuff that Martin O'Neill done. He took off a couple of players on a play and put a couple of players and done the same thing.
Yeah, Celtic just McGregor. In the first half, Gary, I thought the two centre-forwards were marking their two centre-backs quite well. And it was saved. They weren't coming out with the ball as much. McGregor was getting marked as well because you had Moore coming inside, you had Olsen coming inside to mark that space. And when they brought Atati on, yeah, we did lack more mobility in the second half because the players did look tired. Some of them looked done, to be fair. Chukwani looked done.
Mm-hmm.
But Romans was starting to tire. I thought the two boys up front were beat. I don't know why Schmidt stayed on as long. But you can't use that as an excuse, do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they're professional footballers, and I don't know if it's lack of game time, I said to you before this all kicked off, Celtic were playing a lot of games, but I say sometimes that helps you because when you're playing and then playing and resting is better than actually no playing at all. Do you know what I mean? It keeps your match fitness up at a point where it doesn't go down, whereas when you're having days rest, you're having 6 days off, 7 days off, you're training, but you're not training at a high intensity like a match. So I think that maybe didn't help us. But see, to be honest with you guys, see the second half, he did change it. It brought in Dio. I thought Dio was awful when he came on myself. Don't get me wrong, Raskin and Chukwani weren't much better. But we were trying to play the same. We played the same way in the second half we did in the first half. It's just the players weren't there. So I think Roll's going to have to, if he's going to bring on another one to sit in midfield, an extra man in the part and play one up front, he has to adapt his tactics more. Like I said, we didn't have anybody that could just hold the ball and move it 2, 3, 5, 10 yards. We're still playing that long ball. Butland played the exact same balls in the first half as he did in the second half. It's just we didn't have anybody in that area of the pitch. So
we said that, Scott. The people who talked that. See, in the first half, Butland did play the same balls, and we didn't win the first ball then either.
We won the second ball.
We won the second ball. Yeah. In the second half, we didn't win the second balls, and that's where the change came. Because Jermaine and Deary barely win a ball in there all game. Just the second half, it was getting to Raskin and Scott Olsen and Moore were driving into get it afterwards, and that was where the biggest change in midfield to the front had dropped off so much, wasn't it?
It's just we're not a midfield capable of just holding the ball. Couple of minutes here, just dictating play, slowing it down, just putting the ball about, getting 5, 6, 7 passes together. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Liverpool, as you know, right? But Jurgen Klopp, the way he played with Dortmund, the way he played with Liverpool, it's very similar to what Danny Rohl's trying to do. I'm not saying we're going to be like Dortmund or Liverpool, but it's that kind of German style, dynamic. It's the dynamic. You want up the park as quickly as possible. 4-2-2-2, and you're pressing teams, you're on top of them. And when it works, it's great, as we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when the intensity drops or the energy drops, you think, right, where do we go for here? Because you can get picked off easily because the legs stop running, the legs stop moving. And you know yourself, when even the adrenaline in the first half and that comes away for you, you feel tired. But I still don't think, we all look at the bench and Danny, we all think That bench is strong.
Yeah.
I don't know if Danny Rohl actually trusts anybody in that bench. He only done 2 subs, and he should have done more, but I don't know if he trusts them enough to bring them on.
I think on that, so that's a bit I want to pick up on, because there's been a lot of criticism of Danny Rohl over the course of the week, and some of it very much bonkers, some of it slightly justified, some of it, I think I said to Scott at one point, the truth's somewhere in the middle with these things, and there's always a little element of truth, but he made 2 substitutions in a high intensity game, so you've got, and you could see that, as Scott says, Chuck Wani looked shattered after an hour, Jamiti could barely run, come in, and Roman's second half was really poor because he was struggling to cope after that up and down. Now, I'm not saying that we all think those other players on the bench are as good as him, but you've got guys like Bajrami, he's an international player. You had Miovski, an international player. You've got Tav, who's still your top goal scorer in assists and can certainly play in bigger games than that Old Firm game. And you've got McGowan. There's guys here. I mean, I think to suggest the bench there's no players good enough on the bench that could have come on is a bit harsh, considering where they got to over the course of the season with them. So, do you think it was a mistake not to make 5 subs, basically? Because that's the thing most teams you do in games.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't understand it. I was sitting screaming that, so, especially see when I got to about 30 minutes of that nonsense in the second half, I was starting then to get really peed off, I'm being honest, watching it, because it was like, we need to make change here. Why are we allowing this to happen? We're waiting for this second goal to come. And then I was panicking, thinking if it comes too early, we're going to lose this game. It was lucky enough that the goal came so late for them, to be honest, because I think they would have went on again. And like some Magoma, I'm not saying he's world class, but Magoma's done well. And Romans has come in. He's a different level of player. We understand that. But if you've got a Romans who's at about 35% battery left and absolutely knackered, Magoma there on the left-hand side to give them something to worry about, who's quick and can go direct from his left back sort of situation, get himself up the wing and stuff, just to give him something else to support maybe Mikey Murno on that side, who was also starting to tire. But we didn't do it. Barami, as Scotty has said there, we know what he can do. He's been fantastic in these games. When McGregor was starting to, dictate the game, the likes of Barami, who we know, stick him in there, because he's very good at staying on McGregor and actually keeping him quiet. But unfortunately, mate, he just didn't make those changes, and I get, same as yourself, I was frustrated, Gary, at the time, but I'm not going to go, get rid out, because that's just crazy talk at the same time, but it's Rangers. We know this, guys. We're not foolish. We've been there. We've been long in the tooth. You go to Ibrox, that's what's going to happen. That's the pressure of Rangers, mate. And there will be fans that'll go get them out. And I'm not saying the majority. And the most of us will know it's going to take time. But I have to say, I was getting a wee bit cheesed off, not seeing at least a few other guys to come on, because what have we got to lose? We're seeing ourselves backing off. We couldn't find a way out. We were letting them dominate the game, and we had a full week. It wasn't as if there was a big, massive Champions League game on the Wednesday or the Thursday, or a couple. We had a full week of preparing for this game coming up. So I couldn't see why he didn't try and roll the dice.
Yeah, well, let's step you right. So this is a point that Alan's put up. Actually, things interesting. So one of the things that I noticed first half of the atmosphere. So we're echoing there, so somebody mute themselves. So that. I was at the game, and one of the things I noticed was, and I was raised this question, the atmosphere in the first half is probably the best atmosphere I've seen at a domestic game in the last decade. The first half was rocking, really, really buzzing. As soon as it went to 2-1, the atmosphere changed, and there's been a question mark to me in my head all week. Do you think that the fans actually helped perpetuate that anxiety, which then getting the players more, and just the two things together actually didn't help? So I suppose my question, as much as anything else, is, do the fans also need to do more to maybe stick with the team when it got to 2-1 rather than giving them that kind of rise confidence and get them going again? We retreat into our shell. Is that what you want?
It's a strange one, mate, because this is the truth. The fans start to worry because they don't the team. Because the team let the fans down, time and time again in the last few seasons. If you know what I mean, I'm not trying to be too flippant with that and saying blame, but the fans know that something's coming. Do you know what I mean? They know, they can see it because they've seen it so many times. And that was why the same thing at Kilmarnock, when we were only 1-0 up, and the fans again were starting to, and Danny Rohl was going, I couldn't understand why the fans were giving us so much chip, at half time. But it's because we've had how many, one title in 13 years or whatever, how long it's been. Do you know what I mean? And the fans are desperate for something to happen, and we always seem to fall at the same hurdles, you know what I mean? And I think what Scotty said there, and he's correct. Scotty's right. What he said earlier there, the Levy game was still playing in everyone's heads, the Motherwell game and stuff, you know what I mean? And then I think when we've seen the fans and starting to go, watching the team just sort of defend, they got them smash balls out all over the place, seeing nobody put their foot in the ball and start to try and make things work. And it's frustrating because at the end of the day, Gary, I know the fans are there to pay. Our job as fans is to pay your money and go to watch and support. And that's what the fans do in the main. But there will be ones that'll be disgruntled. But at the end of the day, Gary, we're not being paid 30 grand a week, mate, as a professional footballer to hold on to the ball and try and make those right passes. You know what I mean? And I think that's where people get frustrated too. But there's been, even on our page, Gary, on the Facebook, there's been a lot of not infighting, but some people arguing about the players' fault. Some people's arguing, it's a fans' fault. Maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know, but I try to lay off the fans' back at sometimes because I think we've been through so much, and sometimes it's Rangers. I'm trying to even word it myself because I'm still gutted now thinking about it. I'm still sort of low. But I wouldn't give the fans too much gripe about it, mate. But I understand what you're saying. But it's okay. Let's be honest, guys. If it's 2-1, you're winning 2-0 at Ibrox. You're playing so well. Celtic get 1 goal back, and you see your Rangers team capitulating in front of your eyes and being dominated by Celtic. Rangers support at Ibrox, mate, isn't going to, no matter what we want to say, in the main, people's going to get disgruntled and annoyed, and you know what I mean. But there was times as well I heard the fans singing in that second half when we were 2-1 down, trying to G the players up. There was times, and then to go and see Butland smashing it out to nobody, or to see Graskin not being able to pass a ball on 10 yards. You know what I mean? And then they get paid off again. You know what I mean? And that's what happens. Football.
No, I'll stick with you in that, Scott. So I suppose just talking about the fans, right? So I think there is an element. I could feel nervousness after about an hour, and that does probably transmit a little bit. And that's human nature. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not surprised when that happens. But at the same time, we were 2-1 up in Old Firm game. We beat them in January. We also drew them. They've not beaten us, in a league game domestically. Probably is that they beat them last season at all. And so we've got a good record against Celtic, Joe. But there was this automatic fear as soon as they get a goal back that we were going to crumble, which maybe says something about our own views on the team. Maybe says something about our own views on the club in general. I suppose on that. So, and obviously looking at Sunday, the role the fans have to play, because I think it is crucial. I think that adrenaline, the reason we played so well in that emotional adrenaline that was going in the first half was partly because of the fans fed off and the players fed off it. As soon as that the feds went inwards on it, so there's that bit. And I suppose the second bit, because we've talked about this a few times this week, was about the fan reaction. We've heard things like Danny Rohl out after John tweets with Celtic. He's not the man for this. Lots of criticism, lots of things. So just want to get a take on kind of the fan mood. And I mean, when I mean that, I mean by a smaller number of them potentially, but the mood for the fans since that result.
As we all know, football fans are fickle. Doesn't matter who you support, football fans are fickle, and you're only as good as your last result a lot of the times. But I think it's just a lot to do with what we've seen in the past, what we expect. I mean, I've said all along I didn't think we'd win the league because I thought we were too far behind to catch Hearts, but also it was in our own hands, and then we eventually we blew it. But I was always expecting us to make mistakes because that's what I've seen for so long, and I don't trust this squad of players. Even though we've signed 4 new ones, 3 new ones and 1 loan, I still don't think we've got enough there. But I think it's just what fans do, Gary. I mean, the fans are going to come out on Sunday and they'll be behind the team. But anything you can see it early on, or a couple of bad passes, the fans think we're not playing well. You react. That's what you do as a football fan. And some players thrive on it, some players hide on it. And I think on Sunday, I mean, you could sense the fans were nervous just because they've seen it before. And you could sense the players were nervous as well. I thought the players were nervous, and I thought they were expecting another goal from Celtic. I thought it was like they were thinking it was going to happen. And obviously it did, but the players have to. Some players playing and don't even look at the fans, and don't think about it, they just focus on. But other players take in what's going on, and that's the ones sometimes that can hide, that way. So, but to play in a stadium that size with that amount of crowd there, you're always going to get reaction, and the fans, good or bad, are there to voice their opinion. You can't say they're not. You can't say they can. So, But I just think, Gary, you know yourself with football fans, you know yourself with Rangers fans. I mean, we criticise 1 week, we praise next week, and it's just the nature of being at a club that size. And we're desperate for success. So when we think, like I said before, after we beat Hearts, everybody thought it was in touching distance, didn't they? Everybody thought this is in our own hands. We're going to end up doing this, and then you drop points here, there, and you start to panic and you start to think, and then you think you're 2 up against Celtic, you think we're back on the right foot here, and then you draw 2 each, which isn't the end of the world, but because the games are getting less and you're chasing Hearts, you start to panic, and then you know they've got a game in hand and stuff, so everything comes into it, and your fans are going to panic. Danny Rohl's never really experienced that because he's been an assistant pre-season and he's played in Germany where you don't get that intensity with fans. Fans don't really turn their back on the team. I've been to a few games in Germany and I've never really seen it. Even watching it on TV, you don't really see it. In England, you do, but not to the extent. And his Sheffield Wednesday were at a time where their fans were all united because it was against the board. So he had that in his favour, no matter how they were playing good or bad. So when it comes to Rangers, he's going to have to expect this. And he's still a young guy learning. And this is his kind of first time he's a proper job at a big, big club. No disrespect to Sheffield Wednesday, but something where he's got a lot of pressure. No, he can't really draw a lot of games. He has to win games. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There's a lot going on the park, but we just have to go on, Gary, and the fans are the same. I mean, we could win on Sunday, and some people might still not be happy. And that's just the nature of being a football fan. You know, like yourself, that's the nature of doing podcasts, and you know yourself. I can be a glass half empty, and a glass half full. It just depends how the team plays as well. So it's a hard one to judge because at the end of the day, if you're a football fan and you support a team, you've got a right to your opinion no matter what it is.
Yeah. I suppose I'm going to play devil's advocate, right? Because I'm interested in some, because there's a lot of talk about Danny Rohl, so I'm going to look at it from the other side, right? So Big Phil says Danny will be here next season for sure, right? And I suppose the counter argument would be that people use the excuse a lot. He started after 8 games and we're way behind because Russell Martin was such a bad start, right? So if I remember rightly, we were 6 points behind Celtic when he came in. We're now a point behind him, so we've closed in 5 points, and one of that was a win against them. So technically, over the 20 games, despite them losing 6 or 7 games, we've not actually closed in hugely. I think I said to Scott during the week, he's took, was it 6 draws or something like that, and 13 wins, 6 draws, and a defeat. I can't remember what it is over the time. Big Phil had a massively better record over his first 20 games when he came in October. I suppose my question to you is how good a job is Danny Rohl doing, or is it because things are so bad under Russell Martin we perceive it to be good now?
That's a tough one. But, I think to be fair, mate, what he done at the start was make us, remember when he first came in, the whole job was, this squad's not great. He wasn't saying that, but it was, let's just be very good at defending and push from there. So a lot of our first games that we were winning, if you remember, Gary, like our 1-0s here away from Oman at home and stuff, because we knew our defence was sort of a wee bit shaky. So now he's obviously got his own players in, 4 of them. And I know it's January, it's hard to get everyone up to speed. Olsen's one of those ones that we know is a bit classy, who will hopefully come good, but it's just going to take him a while. So he's doing more now, obviously going 2 up front and being more attacking. But I still think he's just overthinking some things. I think what Scotty said earlier is true, mate. He's never had this pressure before of a league title race for a start. But he's done amazing getting us this far. It's just overthinking. But the problem is, mate, he hasn't even had 2 full seasons as a manager. If you look at his games, I think, what was it, like 119 games I think he's managed. And if you look at that, Rangers would play 119 games easy, probably in 2 seasons. If you count Europe and all the cups, if you go to the end and all of them. So and the problem for us isn't something we're going to have to accept, whether we like it or not, is he's going to make mistakes. And we're going to have to sort of hope he learns from any wee mistakes he makes sort of as quick as possible, mate. But I wouldn't be in the camp of saying get rid of him, but I think that's crazy talk probably at this stage. But when we're used to it at Rangers, it wouldn't surprise me next October if we're doing this again, because that's what we do on the yearly. But I just think he's overthinking things too much, and I think that's naivety, to be honest, mate. The likes of the Motherwell game, don't worry about Hearts. You know what I mean? You worry about Motherwell. Motherwell are the best football side in the country, which I've said this so many times. So worry about them. And I think he overthought too much and thought more about the Hearts game. The Livingston game as well, you know, maybe that was a wee bit unlucky because we had a lot of chances, just couldn't get it over the line, mate, you know what I mean? But I think it's a bit disheartening the last 6 games with 4 draws, mate. But that's going to get you pressure. It's going to get some fans just saying he's not the man, he's not the one, and we know that's going to happen. But for me, I think he'll do well, but he will make mistakes. He's still a young manager, but we're just going to have to sort of suck it up and hopefully he gets those mistakes ironed out as quick as possible, mate. But you can only learn on the job. This is the problem.
I'm going to stay with you with that, Scott, because I'm interested, Rick, because I do think it's quite an interesting story. So if you look at, people talk about the poor squad he inherited. You look at the squad that Clement took over. Was it any better? Not sure. With Dujon Sterling playing right wing in those games, you had McCausland playing lots of games, you had Dessers up front, you know, people who slated. So there was, I mean, whether it was a better squad then is a debatable one. Do you think he gets... There's a lot of talk about him bringing us back from 8 points behind, or 13 points behind, whatever it was from Hearts. Hearts have forms dipped. Do you think he's getting there's a desire from Rangers fans, we don't want to keep sacking managers, so he's maybe getting more positive praise from the majority than maybe the actual performance he's done? I've seen somebody saying maybe he gets a 6.5 out of 10 for so far. I suppose I'm interested because you can see it's one of these things, you can always see two sides of the story.
I think it's harsh. I think it's very harsh the way some people are talking about him. He's been in the job since October. And I don't think you can compare him to Clement. I was a big fan of Clement. I don't think he was a good manager. I don't think he's great.
So why not? Clement get 19 wins and a draw in his first 20 games.
But Bill got a good record as well.
And a cup.
I know, but Bill got a good record when he first came through the door. We've all got different opinions, Gary. I just didn't think Clement was a great. I thought his second season he failed.
Clement had to go, sorry, just to be clear with this conversation. Just saying what we comparing against.
I thought Clement hit his ceiling very quickly. Was in his second season he panicked. Now, but I looked at it wasn't his fault. It was bad had to deal with behind the scenes. But I thought he panicked as well, especially the cup game against Queen's Park. Kind of nailed it, but the performances before that weren't great either. And listen, if Danny gets to that situation, the board will make a change. I don't think the board are going to wait as long as the previous board did. But I don't want to keep changing managers every year. End up with something like Watford. You can't, and that's no disrespect to Watford, but you can't keep doing that. It's not sustainable. You can't keep bringing in guys and sacking them a year later, bringing in guys and sacking them. One, it becomes a poison chalice and nobody will take it. And two, you're never going to get a settled squad side because you're not going to get poor signing for you. You could be like, I signed for you, and then 12 months later, you're away. I might not get a game. Your manager might not like me. Do you know that way? So it's very harsh, and he's 36. And you have to give him time. I mean, we gave Gerrard time, and I know the situation was slightly different, but Gerrard get a lot of time. Gerrard gets a lot of praise, and he done a lot of good work, Gerrard. But he's still only won his one trophy. And then you're talking about Clement, he won one trophy. Granted, it was a league.
Gio won a trophy.
Gio won a trophy. Gerrard was building something that you could see. And I think give Danny all the time he will. I mean, you have to give managers time. You can't just keep sacking managers just because you get a couple of bad results. And see, at the end of the day, see if he came in, and when he came in, and he won a few, lost a few, won a few, lost a few, everybody would have said, well, we don't expect much because of how his season started. It's because he probably overachieved when he first came through the door and got his back in the title race. People are thinking, we should be winning this now. Whereas if he came in and done okay, he would have been given that extra season fine with the fans because he would have said, well, look how we started the season. It's because he's reached above probably his ceiling when he's overreached with the players he's got. Because the players, Gary, we criticised. Everybody's criticised the players apart from the 4 new guys. Do you know what I mean? In the start of the season. And then Rohl's come in and done relatively well. Got his back in it, and then he's lost it. Drew a few, and everybody's shitting the bed and saying, nah, sack him. Bring in somebody else. Bring back Gerrard. Go back for Muscat, blah, 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 blah. You can't keep doing that. It's not sustainable. But saying that, if he starts next season and we're poor, the board will react. But no for me at this moment in time.
Well, I'm going to stick with that sense of question just because I'm continuing the scene there. So has he overachieved? So 49 points at 60 odd. Wilfred Nancy, if he hadn't been there for that 4 weeks and blew Celtic's title challenge and for that spell, if Hearts' form hadn't went back to what it should have been since November, well, what their normal form would be, because it has been since November to February, has he overachieved, or has it also been that Hearts have went back to where they should be? And with Celtic and Wilfred Nancy losing 4 games in the case a month, or else we'll be nowhere right now.
It's you know what I was thinking. What Scotty was saying there, and it's so true. Danny Rohl is probably a wee bit more a victim of his own success because see if Danny Rohl had to come in, we had lost a few games here and a few games there, everyone would have went, see that squad they built is shite, you know what I mean? And because Danny Rohl's got a tune out of them and actually got wins out of them on the regular when he first came, and everyone was like, oh, this guy's the messiah, you know, as we do because we get carried away, we're fans, we do that. And now it's starting to, maybe it's as Scotty says, we're starting to stagnate again because we've still got the old heads there, guys, who have let us down time and time again when it comes to it, you know what I mean? I mean on the field, and I think Danny Rowe probably found that out for himself, like previous managers have found out before him. So he's probably as the victim of his own success. But the thing is, for me, see, once we got ourselves into the title race that we weren't expecting to be in, so I get that. But see, once we were close and we were there, then you're sort of going, well, look, your Rangers Football Club, you've been given another 4 signings in January to help you, give you the push, you know, to go more in this title race, and we're starting to see ourselves falling. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where people's getting annoyed. And Scotty's right what he says. You know, he is probably the victim of his own success. But fans won't want to keep saying and won't want to keep listening to, but where were we? Look where he's got us to. People's going, right, okay, well, that's done. We've got us here now. You got us into the title fight. Why are we starting to drop points now? And I'm not saying that's fair or unfair. I'm just saying that's what people's and the fans are going to be saying. Gary, you know what I mean? And they look at results like the game, the Levy game, we're talking about the Motherwell game, the Hibs game, playing poorly, you know what I mean? And everyone was thinking, right, well, we've got ourselves here now. We can't think of the negativity of Russell Martin. That's over. We're back in this fight. Let's count ourselves lucky and push on, especially with the new signings. And it's just not happening, you know what I mean? And I think that's what's the questions are coming in now, and people saying, "Oh, he's not the man we thought he was," and I think it's too early for that too. And he's not going to get the sack. But as Scotty says, if he's not good next season or start of next season, and everyone's panicking, then the Rangers board will react. There's no doubt about it.
I don't. Just to be clear, I don't want people to think I'm criticising Danny Rohl. I like him. I think he's good. I think he's done well. I'm just suppose there's just trying to look at some balance and different views on it. And I suppose my last point on this before we move ahead to the game, Scott. I think, and go back to what William was saying, if Danny Rohl, if he finished third, we're third favourites of the league just now. If we finish third as it stands, just everything continues as is, and we don't win the Scottish Cup. Do you think he's starting with such a drop down that a couple of bad results start next season? He really struggled to achieve it. I suppose I think it's about the same way the Michael Beale scenario, the Giovanni Bronckhorst, even to come on. You start at a low base. What happens the previous season counts for what happens in the following season. So he really needs to at least win the Scottish Cup.
Listen, if he wins the Scottish Cup, that's great. I think that's his aim, and I think if he does that, it gives him a wee boost of confidence. But I think sometimes managers get a lot of criticism, right? And like I said, they're the first ones to get the sack. I think sometimes we need to look at the players. I think we need to criticise the players as well. And I think there's a lot of players not helped them. I mean, I know you look back to Sunday, like Gary, you seen it, you were there. I seen it at Telly Suite. It's like a different perspective watching it on TV and watching it at a stadium. But no matter what he said to the players, he never told the players to go out and sit deep and go for a draw. No chance. But some of these players just either legs went, he could have made more subs, all these different things. But he brought in Dio and he didn't really affect the midfield.
But he played in the wrong position. He played him as a number 10. He played him right behind the striker anyway. He done the same thing.
He did, but he was told to. He's obviously as a number 10. You're told to drop deep. Like Mikey Moore's always dropping deep. Mikey Moore's always chasing back.
But he played in the same position the Deary was in pretty much, didn't he? Just played him right behind Shamiti. He didn't change them flat.
Because two centre backs and one was getting direct with Shamiti, he was passing it to Scales, whatever, and then he coming out with the ball and picking him in the midfielder. So you've got a big gap there. Deal didn't really do that. But anyway, I think we've got to look at the players as well. And I think if he does get next season, which I think he will, he's got to get more backing, because a lot of these players have got just now. We need a lot of more players in. I know Ricky always says 8 and 10 players. He might not be far away. I know we had the big came in the summer with players come in, but a lot of these players aren't good enough, or not what we need, especially for his system he wants to play. He wants to go physical, dynamic, pace, whatever, height. And a lot of these guys don't fit that mold. So I think you have to give him a summer, but you don't want to give him the summer, Gary, and say, like, go and buy yourself 8 players and come October, bag them, and you're bringing in a manager who's bought players, who's bringing in a manager who the previous guys bought players to play this system. He comes in, he's no, I want to go 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so you're asking the fans to be patient, or you're just going to say, right, every time the going gets tough, we bag the manager and bring in somebody else. It's a tough call for the board because I wouldn't like to be in there, but it's a tough call. But I think some of the players have to seriously look at themselves, and some of the players will have to seriously get rid of, even the ones who may be under contract. And if anybody in there you can get money off of, and I'm including Raskin and Diomande in this, if you can make money off them in the summer, you get rid of them and bring in others.
So on that, right, I'm just going to pick it because I get what happens. It's easy because as fans, you obviously target the same players, right? I've said it for years. Souters gets it a lot now. If you look at it, Ricky's favourite and probably my favourite player we brought in is Robbins. Outstanding. He was dreadful in second half. Do you know, let's be honest, he was dreadful. He did a really poor second half. So it's not necessarily about the old players not being good enough because there isn't that many of them playing anymore. It's sometimes so it's not as simple as that. Madeira was poor. Chukwani you talked after the game. Chukwani Scott was terrible in the second half because he's knackered. So this argument that constantly it's the old players that cost us. It's old players that are the one that's meaning we're not winning. That's a bit of a fallacy. It's about there's a lot more to it than just that. And get rid of John Souttar's not going to solve all the problems, as some people have suggested over the course of the week. Well, you think that was it was how I'm to blame for every element of the goal, not the fact that Sterling handled it, not the fact that nobody else defended.
The problem for John Souttar is every time he makes a fuck up, we concede. and it happens all the time. He's the most unluckiest player ever, Gary, because he'll have a decent enough match and he'll have a wobble. Same as the Livy, the silly decisions are giving a super free kick away. And most other people that gets headed away and you forget about it. Souttar, no, it goes that results in a goal, and he's unfortunate that way. The only problem is for me, mate, and you know what I'm looking at? I'm just trying to look at, from that. Remember the 2 Aberdeen games back to back? I think that's when we were fully pumping. And I'm looking at John Souttar sort of come into the team. People say, that's. But I think losing Connor Barron as well. And a lot of people always say he hasn't got the skill and stuff, but he's got he's a hard worker. I think we've missed Connor Barron in that midfield. Do you remember that game at the game at Ibrox? He was absolutely fantastic against them, and everyone was like, he is on it. This guy's really found his feet. And then typical luck for us, he wasn't able to. He got himself an injury. So the likes of Connor Barron, I think we missed him in that game. Having someone there just to spring on to say, right, we need a bit of life again this team.
It would have been a good sub to bring on.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, that's what I think. Because he's to me, he's like a dog on a leash. You know what I mean? He's like, you're holding him, and he just wants to be let loose and run about, and that's what Connor Barron gives you. The only thing I'll say about we were talking about experienced players and the new players. I think what we need people in the midfield, the likes of Raskin, and I'm a big advocate at Raskin. I always you can look back on all our shows, I'd give Raskin so much credit, but the likes of Raskin there is now one of our older heads. He's still a young player. He's not an old man. I'm not saying it, but when it comes to he's been there for quite some time. So they're the sort of players we need to see. When's the last time Raskin's played an absolute fantastic match that you can remember? Like, look at the time do you remember Russell Martin bombed him out of the team? And remember he came back after Belgium and he played in the cup against Hibs. Fuck me, he was everywhere. Absolutely fantastic. He had a point to prove, and you seen it that day. Scored a great goal. Was fantastic the whole game. But he has a tendency, I think, sometimes of sort of you can see him sort of fizzling out of matches, and that's been happening in the last wee while. So I'd like to see a wee bit more from the likes of Raskin as well, mate. I mean, I don't want to just give Souttar all the stick because, as I say, I do think he's unfortunate at times. You could throw Jig in there, but the problem is we've seen Jig in the cup against Celtic at Hampton, if you remember. First couple of minutes, he made a mistake, and that was him. His head was gone the rest of the game, So it's easy to say get Souttar out. And I think we do need to probably better than Souttar next season. Maybe Souttar not playing 50 games a year. But that's for next season. As of for now, it's easy to say get Souttar out. But if Giga has a bad game, everyone's looking, going, why did you stick him on? He's a donkey against them.
No, I'd agree. I think what we'll do is we'll look ahead to the game. And it's interesting, just before you move on for the you're talking about Raskin. I find it fascinating, just in general with fans. It's not just their team; every team's the same. you're meant to use your bias because you've known a player for a few years, and you probably are more likely to criticise them. So to say Romans, Nadiri, Chakmani, they'll get the grace. But Raskin now, because it seems to be becoming a bit more of a target because for a couple of years he's now not doing it. Tav has obviously been winning for a number of years. Butland gets it because you know these players, so you know them, and you're more in tune to criticise them by nature. And I think it's probably some things. Scott's a big Raskin fan. I like Raskin. I don't think he's amazing, but I think he's a good player. But I do find it quite fascinating now how many people are starting to. He must be part of the problem, as opposed to he was the solution for the last 2 years. And it's maybe just about how we look at these things. But moving ahead to the game, I suppose it's interesting. We've talked about. I'm going to put my colours to the mast here and say that John Souttar should play. So I'm going to pick up in defence, Scott, first. And I'm going to have this argument with you because we've been debating this during the week. John Souttar plays for a reason, in my opinion, not because I think he doesn't make defensive mistakes. I think he does. But I think John Souttar is the best passer of the ball we have from that back to the middle too. He's the one that's able to pass, sprint, spin the ball over the top to Romans, particularly, and able to play the ball through the lines away that Raskin and Chakmani can. And I think that's why he plays. And on top of that, Giga, he was dreadful for 4 months. He had a good month after the Cup of Nations. I don't know why all of a sudden we all think he's outstanding. You're on mute, Scott. You're on mute. Still on mute. Still on mute. Come on. Goes at the end.
The button's not going off. No, you're probably right with Souttar's. I mean, he can bring the ball out at time, he can pass the ball 10, 15, 20 yards. But I just think he's awful. I would either go with Giga in there or put Sterling in there and bring Tav back when they start Souttar. I think he's on confidence. I think you can see his confidence is down. He should be a leader, and he's not a leader for me. Not a leader. He was captain. He doesn't deserve an armband. He doesn't lead, for example, for me. I think Tav does, and a lot of people don't think he does, but I think Tav tries to. Not be shouting or screaming, but the way he tries to play the ball forward and try to make things happen. Maybe not as much now, Gary, but you know yourself with Tav in the past, he used to close out holes and stuff. So I can't do stuff like that. He's a siege defender, and that's basically that. And that's not for Rangers, that's for somebody, a lower calibre team. And he's a squad player at best, but I think he's only been re-signed because he's Scottish. If there isn't Scottish, he wouldn't have been re-signed. So I'd either bring in Giga or put Sterling there and put Tav back at fullback. I think he's too much a risk at this moment. Since he's come back, we've been losing so many goals. Listen, folk are going to disagree, and I know that's fine if he's got an opinion, but I think since he's come back into the side, we've lost more goals just because he's there. He's seen it. Anybody, he doesn't like people around at him. He wants to go deeper and deeper and deeper because he's not getting pace, and that can bring its own problems to your team as well. But that's just me, Gary. He probably will start, no doubt. But I would either Sterling there or Giga.
Yeah, I'll come at you on this then, William. So I suppose just on the defence and more generally, right? So Scott talked about Tav going right back as opposed to maybe Sterling moving in the middle or Souttar and Giga. So what would your 4 be? So we're assuming Romans at left back, presumably Fernandez still playing. As those other 2 positions, would you be sticking with Sterling? I think the challenge with playing Tav, and everyone knows how I'm a huge Tav fan, is he doesn't have the pace. You know, you can't expect a 34-year-old to ramp down the park the same way that Rohl wants. So, although he probably should have been given half an hour on Sunday.
The first name on my team sheet in the defence is Sterling in these games all the time and I'll tell you why. Because Maeda runs those games, has done for years, and every time he comes up against Sterling, they have to change position over after half time because he doesn't get any joy in that left. That's why he was put into the middle in the second half.
Sterling not at fault for their penalty then?
What, sorry?
Sterling not at fault for their penalty then as well? Not.
Fair enough, right? But come on. That is picking holes, mate.
If Tav or Souttar gave it, they'd get slaughtered.
See if that's a penalty, man. That's not a penalty for me.
That's a definite penalty, Scott. It's definitely a penalty.
Where you might put your hands, Gary? When
doesn't matter where you put your hands. It's irrelevant. Doesn't matter.
Not really. Not watch Wally Collins' show a few months ago and he says the bar should be higher. When we get a penalty against Alloy, he didn't give it because a guy was running and his hand was out. Yeah, and Souttar, because Sterling just through there. You can't fly through there with your hands yet. So
he did give the penalty. What he said after it, actually, I remember the game because I was going to see the journey back that night. Actually, he did give a penalty. I think he said after it, he's like, I probably would like the bar to be higher, so you don't give them so easily. I think that's what he said.
Why is the bar no higher then?
Anyway, while you were speaking, you've just butted in there because we're
Sorry, William.
So
no, seriously, I think I can only say what I say. You know what I mean? And when we play Celtic, Maeda makes a mockery out of us, and that's my opinion. That's every time he rules the game. He's dangerous all the time. All he wants to do is obviously wing and head of the crowd. Many times have you seen Maeda doing that against Rangers at Ibrox and Parkhead, beating the right back. And because of for pace, and we understand Tav's pace, he just doesn't have it now, Gary. And you're 100% correct what you're saying there, mate. And then the love hitting the ball right just outside the box area, which they done the whole second half, to be fair, as well. And taking shots from there, and there's so many goals against us that way. I'm just thinking when Sterling's up against Maeda, I'm just talking about one duel on a full football field. When I'm looking at Maeda coming up against Sterling, look at him at the game at Parkhead, look at them at the game at Ibrox. Every time they match up, Maeda has to be moved to a different position. Do you know what I mean? That's my opinion. But I'll say one thing. Maeda will probably not play on the left-hand side this time. He'll probably start through the middle. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. It's all about opinions, but I think your first one's Sterling there for the penalty.
I would be starting Sterling. I said this last week. I would start Sterling for the first hour. I think Tav should have won, as he should have won Sunday for the last half hour, even for that leadership, as Scott talks about, and having that control. But certainly when the passing ability when the game's going, he should have won. So I would start with Sterling. Would you play Suter or Giga or something else in the middle?
I would go, as I say, mate, next season, I want Suter's there because he's got his contract. I want to see better in that defence. That's just my opinion. I don't want to see Suter playing 50 games for Rangers. I don't think he was brought in to even do that at the time when he came from Hearts. I think he's always been a good Scottish head. He can come in certain games and do your job 100%. I don't think he should be starting every week. But as it stands right now, you're gonna probably will be Suter that'll start because we've seen, as I said before, mate, we've seen Giga, and he is a decent big player at times, but we've seen the only thing that worries me, Gary, is that as I say, that Hampton first couple of minutes he made a wee bit of a mistake, and his head, that was him gone, mate. You can see there's a mentality issue. If he doesn't start well, you're already going, fuck, he needs to come off because it's just not his day. So that's probably a more swaying to Suter that way, mate.
I would agree, man. I think it was a Bruges game that he gave the goal away, and he collapsed after that for months, basically. And the Celtic game was one of the
that's it. He seems to be a confidence player, and that's if it's going well, he's great, and he can play well. But if something happens to him, just a nervous thing, his head goes wherever. I think Suter can make a silly mistake and sort of dust himself down and go again.
So moving out of midfield, Scott. So there's been talk again. I'm trying to think of things that people will talk about over the course of the week. There's a lot of talk about the midfield three, or going to give him the midfield two because we got overrun in the second half. And obviously Chapwane played, good destroyer, doesn't really do a lot with the ball. Dio, come on, who after playing well since January, had a terrible second half. What would you be looking at then? So in terms of you going for the three, going for the two, and who of those?
I don't think he's get the players to play 4-3-3, Gary. I don't think we struggle. I think he wants to play well. He's going to play as a 4-4-2, but even he says 4-2-2-2. And I think it suits us. But the problem is, after an hour, we tire. But I think they're going to go three in the middle. I think they'll go Taneki in the wing with Maeda and Yang, Knight, McGregor and Atati. I think that's where they'll go. And I think they'll find what he said. I think they'll get that space again, because if Martin will probably think Rohl's going to go the same way, and they probably will. But if the intensity's there, then we'll be fine, because Moore can come back deeper. Olsen can come back. You get one of the forwards dropping back when they've got the midfielder, they've got the ball, and then press them, and the centre backs have got it. It's when we tire, I think that's when we struggle, because we bring on players because Sam, I didn't have a clue where he was last week, because I sat next to you or me or whatever. I didn't have a clue what to do. Dio was struggling, whereas Maeda, to me, is a good footballer, but nothing more. But the problem he's got so much pace, and that frightens defenders. It frightens them. Doesn't frighten Sterling, because Sterling can match him, but it frightens Suter. So we'll get deeper if Maeda's playing. It would just be on to Suter. If I was Maeda and I was up against Suter Fernandez, I would follow Suter a bit everywhere, because I know he doesn't want me next to him. So it's interesting. I mean, if Connor Barron's back training, do you start him?
Nah, he's not going to be fit enough. I mean, I think but it's just January. And
I mean, he's a type of player.
Aye.
That's what I was thinking, Gary, probably on the bench, but he's a type of player you probably need, but do you better bring him on? Maybe if you can get a lead again, bring him on. I don't really know. But do you match up to the middle? But if you match up to the middle, who are you taking away for the top? Because I don't think Schmidt is good enough up front himself.
Well, you take Olsen or Moore, wouldn't you? You really go for it and go more of a diamond kind of way.
Aye. So I don't know, does it match up? Does it just be put around me and let them worry about us again? Because they struggled with us. I know they were played different, but they did struggle with the physicality and the intensity we had. Because they struggle at the back. Because I know Trusty will probably be back.
And is he in a band still now? Is he out back?
I think Schmeichel is just a big fat whale and he's awful in goals. I don't think Trusty's any better than the young boy Murray, so it doesn't bother me, but it's just the way we match up with them, or do we look after ourselves and say you whatever it is.
So are you going same team with the exception of Tav coming in for Suter? Is that basically it?
I think he'll just pick the same team as last week myself, but if it was me, I'd either be Giga for Suter or Tav and
Move Sterling in one.
The only thing is, if Taneke plays who's just as quick as me and tricky, I think Tav will struggle with him as well. So I'll probably buy in Giga and leave Suter out there. Middle of the part's interesting, but do you stick with asking Chuck Manager bring in Deal? I don't really know. The problem is, Gary, we've not got enough midfielders. We've not got enough midfielders who can retain the ball.
Well, you have, but they're not playing by Rami and Nasgard. They're the ones that are supposed to be able to do that, aren't they?
So I thought I'm a big fan of Tell, right? Well, I watched him a lot, but he's not really done it for us. But I thought if he'd have come on last week, he might have held the ball better for us because that's his game. But he's not really done it to me backing up saying that, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's what he's supposed to be as a player, but he's not showing it over the course of the season. I think that's the issue.
And Barami, I don't know why. I thought he's done okay since when he's come on at times. I think he can offer something, but obviously, I'm not the manager.
So while you're looking through the rest of the team, any other changes other than the fact we talked a wee bit about the defence here? The front six, if you want to call it that, of Chukwani, Raskin, Skov Olsen, Nadiri, Chamiti, and Moore.
I want to keep the same team, right? But the problem is for me is, and even I say that's the team I wanted before it kicked off. It was a team that I was really glad was on the pitch the first 55 minutes. And then I'm sitting looking, though, what problem do we have here if we are 1-0 up and we're doing well in the first half and then we start to have these same issues again? With Chukwani's going to be a bit knackered. Nadiri's going to run himself like a headless chicken and start to tire. Chermiti starts to tire and you're leaving him up on his own when you know that's just it. That never works. That's the thing. I'm sort of I think we need to, if we do start the same team, and I still want to start the same team, but that's the thing that's scaring me, Gary. Is this? What about the last 30 minutes? What if it goes the extra time in 120 minutes, which could happen? And I think that's where Danny Rohl has to be smarter on his bench, and we need as a team to manage the game a lot better. You know what I mean? And we need to be thinking in the second, if we're lucky enough to be 1 or 2-0 up, I hope again in this one in the first half, we need to be managing the ball a lot better, making changes a lot earlier. When like Chukwani's done, change him. It's all right saying I think Scotty's right. He maybe doesn't trust a few guys on the bench, but it's better than having an empty vessel who's just can't give you anything anymore because they're literally done, So that's where the interesting part will come for me. But I still want the same team on. But as I say, mate, 60 minutes in, we could be sitting going, fuck, how do we inject the life in again? You know what I mean? And if Danny Rohl doesn't make the changes, that's But again, that comes back to him being a wee bit naive, still a bit raw, Gary. There's thinking. I'm sure he's chewed over that game himself all week and went, fuck, why didn't I? Should have done this, and that's all shoulda, woulda, coulda, and that's where you learn, you know what I mean? And all the best managers in the world have had to learn, you know what I mean? Martin O'Neill's been retired now quite a long time, but as I say, he's a wily old fox. He knows what he's doing, and he knew what way to change it. And Danny Rohl, unfortunately, that was what our issue was. Maybe just didn't know how to change it to counteract that, But hopefully this week he pulls something out of the bag for us, mate.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting.
I've seen this week people saying, Celtic took a butt for it because the way the game ended last week. Should our players not butt for it more? The way the game ended.
You can argue that game every way you want, and this doesn't really mean it. You can argue the same thing opposite ways.
Themselves, well, we should actually win this game, but we blew it. Should they not butt for it as well to prove a point to themselves?
Or Rangers, you say we beat them 3-1, drew them 0-0, we beat them 2-0, we've showed we're a better team than them, so let's get and do it again. Do you know, there's a million different ways you can look at that, and it'll only depend on the game. I think, you know, Scott, I suppose, how important do you think substitutes may be in the game? And forget, if we talk about the same starting lineup, how crucial do you think the substitutes are going to be? Looking at the teams, I would have thought on Sunday, Rangers had a stronger bench, but we didn't use it. And given the Scottish Cup game, it could go at 120 minutes, penalties, all the stuff that goes with it. Do you think that might be the thing that tips in one side's favour?
It could be. I mean, it definitely could be, Gary. I think the referee will probably have a big say in that, to be fair, but I think it could be with the subs, but it depends how you use your subs again. I mean, Danny Rohl usually does use quite a few subs off the bench, but for Sunday, for some reason, he never. I don't know why. Maybe he wanted to trust the guys in the park, or maybe he just doesn't, like we've alluded to, he doesn't trust the guys on the bench. I don't really know. But it could.
Motherwell wrong subs. There's been a few times the last few weeks people have argued the wrong subs at different, or not making the right subs at the right time.
A couple of subs he made has changed it as well previously. Do you know what I mean? It can work either way depending on your opposition, but I don't know. I think we're just going to have to take the game as it comes, and the players are going to have to do that. Maybe manage it more. Maybe don't get sucked into as much, because I see the training in the first half must have been up here.
Yeah.
Walking off at half time, they were all bouncing. And then they get sit in the dressing room, have a drink, whatever. I'm going to say half an orange, but I think that's a thing in the past, isn't it? And then and then you come back out, and when your adrenaline gets back down, you do feel tired. So maybe that's, and Celtic players have been, like I alluded to, they've been playing week in, week, they've been playing Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, or whatever, and catching up in games, so they're fit because they're not training, so it's a different type. And sometimes you're better. I remember we done it years ago. We played quite a lot of games in succession. We managed it. Obviously, results didn't go away at times, but we did manage. It's when you're having long gaps, you come back, you can be sluggish, and you might not be up to top. And some of these new guys, you know, that's a lot of them. That's their first Old Firm games, and sometimes it goes by like that, and they probably even remember some of it. You think, what the effing was that I just played in? So that I think they'll be better for last week, and maybe manage it better.
Yeah, no, probably right. Actually, probably for a lot of them, it is probably the first. Even the ones that were there in August, September, when that game was a nothing game. 0-0 win, Russell Martin, that actually was dreadful. Everything about it. It wasn't the intensity. I think that's a fair point. That when people, I think, probably did go into half time, the adrenaline probably did drop and struggled to really replicate that in the second half. And it's not easy to change that.
It's better when you're chasing a game. So when you're chasing something.
That's what I was going to say. Celtic nothing to lose, so they can come out and attack, whereas you're kind of sitting between. So it's a totally different game on Sunday. Nothing like the game probably this Sunday. I think people suggesting it's going to be exactly the same. We'll go out and battle in the first half, and then we'll try and hold on. I don't think it's no two games are ever the same. People seem to forget that. But looking ahead to Sunday, William, I suppose two things on a scale of 1 to 10, then, right? With 1 being shitting myself through to 10 being I'm super confident, so arrogant I can't lose. Where are you?
Oh fuck! If I'm you know what? A few drinks in me on Sunday morning, I'll be up to 10. But at the minute, I'm sitting at about a 6, and that's because I know what this team does to us, mate. You know what I mean? And I'm scared to get excited. This is the problem, because I'm scared to get myself up here, because every time I do that, you know what I mean? And I'm like, we're going to hammer these boys, you know what I mean? And then the next minute it doesn't happen for us. So maybe if I go with a 6 or 7, I go for a 7. I'll go for a 7, and maybe the thing. But I'll tell you one thing. If I see a forward 3 of Moore on the left, Gassam on the right, and Chermiti up on his own, that'll go to a 1 or a 2 very, very quickly, because that never works. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it in the second half. I don't want to see it in the first half. I don't want to see it in extra time. I never want to see it again for the rest of the season. No Gassam on the right, because if you do, the comments are about Matondo. You're better off having Matondo 1, because that's what you're getting.
Yeah. So going on your scale, on your 6 or 7, what do you think in terms of scoreline? And give us your prediction.
Oof. Do you know what? I just want to go out and battle them in the first half and just keep a clean sheet. 2-0. I don't want a 2-2 and going in the extra times. I don't think my heart could take that, Gary. But do you know what? I'm gonna go 3-1 Rangers. I think we'll start well. I think we will, and the Derry and all them guys will do a great job. And I'm thinking this time we'll maybe just manage the game a bit better. I would say that's what Danny Rohl and his players have been doing all week. Where did we go wrong in that second half, and how do we, you know, when Celtic are coming on, the attacking us or whatever, or they're poking holes on what they've done wrong in the first half and trying to rectify it? How do we keep our heads, pass the ball at the right time, take a wee foul here if you need to, take a wee bit more time on the ball when you're the keeper or whatever, you know what I mean, and manage the game better. So I think we'll maybe do it that way. And when Celtic come out, as I say, to try and get the equaliser, we'll nick another one 3-1. So there you go.
3-1. And Scott, you've been a scale of 1 to 10 from you. You've been super positive this week, so you remaining as confident as you have been in a score prediction.
Gary, see game against Celtic, I don't really worry about, because what will be. It's games against other teams I worry about, because as we've seen, Livingston and Motherwell, they games. If you were playing Partick Thistle on Sunday in the Cup, I'd be worried about that. But in Celtic, it takes care of itself, and I think we've been fine against them. I don't feel them, so I think it'll be close again. But I don't think we'll run away with the game. I think it will be close, and I think 2-1. Rangers will win 2-1, but it might go to extra time. But I do think we'll win 2-1. But I think we'll play well. But I think they'll win the game, because you can never really, apart from when we were coming back up for the championship, you can't really look at Old Firm games and think somebody's just going to run away with it. It doesn't really work that way, games like this. But other games, you can get the fear, hit by the fear like that. But I'm confident for Sunday, Gary. But I think, like I say, it will be close. But I think we'll not make the same mistakes twice. I'm hoping we don't make the same mistakes twice, put it that way.
Yeah, I think I'll go 2-0 Rangers. Fernandes should score ahead. He actually had a couple of good moments. If the right ball's into him, I think he'll get chances, because they're not a big team. So I'll go 2-0 for there. So we're going to finish in a couple of moments. I'm just thinking 2 last points, right? So we're going to talk about the season ticket renewal thing out today very briefly. And while we're doing that, I'm going to ask you to think, William, and Scott, of your favourite Old Firm Scottish Cup goal in the last period. So if there's one that springs to mind over the last period, so I'll get you to think of that. So first things first, Scott, me and you get the email today, season ticket renewals. There's been a lot of consternation. I've seen X and all these other things going off on that. The fact that you've been told 2 weeks in advance that the season tickets are coming out 2 weeks early this year, I think. And it seems to have not been received particularly well.
No, I've seen a few people putting comments on it. Listen, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I think it's just warning you're coming out and you've got a chance to pay them early, but it didn't come up with any prices, it didn't come up with anything else. It was just to basically say the season tickets are going to get them through the next couple of weeks. To say you can ruin your season ticket earlier than usual if you want to, if no, or probably the same date as usual, and you can start your first payment if you're paying up at a certain time as well, which is what I usually do. So, and people moan about it. I've probably moaned about it in the past, but see, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you're going to renew it anyway, because that's what you do. And it doesn't matter if you win the cup, win the league, don't win the cup, don't win the league, you're going to renew your season ticket, because that's what you do. So I'm just hoping it's not up much, Gary. That's what I'm basically hoping for. Hoping it's maybe still the same price as last season.
Hopefully we'll not see a 10% increase. I mean, I know it's come out earlier. It was earlier. I didn't expect to see it. I read an email saying Rangers FC season ticket renewals. I thought it was earlier than I expected. But then I read it and thought, they're all telling you it's a pre-warning. The renewals are going to come out in a couple of weeks and be ready for them. So from the club itself, the quicker they get the money in, the quicker it goes into accounts, and the quicker they're then able to distribute again in the next season. So as we're for the sake of a few weeks. So I don't know, William, if you get any views on that, but I suppose what will get you to do is give me your greatest Old Firm goal in the Scottish Cup goal, if you can think of one. The one that rings to your head.
Well, when it comes to the season tickets, I tell you one thing, it's they're letting us know that early now. I would say after the King's speech, after Christmas dinner, you'll probably get a thing from Rangers. Season tickets are coming out, guys. Just be ready to rock and roll again. But as Scotty said, we'll all do this. I have a season ticket myself as well. So at the end of the day, Scotty says, as long as it's not crazy money, which I can't see it being, it probably will go up a wee bit because we have spent and we are going to continue to spend. But here, if it gets invested in the team, then everyone will be happy enough to pay a wee bit extra. You know what I mean? As much as we don't like to have to do it, but if it means the team's getting improved, then that's fair enough, I suppose. Scottish Cup goal, for me, well, I would always say the Lovencrans one, not because it was the most prettiest, but what it meant. If you know what I mean, you know that, guys, that was probably one of the greatest goals in any Old Firm game. You know, at the last minute, the winner on the day win the cup against them is something, and there was some cracking player on both sides, to be fair, some really good players. Barry Ferguson scoring that free kick, and then Lovencrans obviously getting that late one, and you see what it meant to him too. And to score it at that time when everyone knew when it went in, we've won the cup, and then going, we've lost the cup. You know what I mean? Absolutely perfect. So that's one I'll always go for, mate.
Scott, do you have one that springs to mind?
probably everybody kind of looks back to 11 Crans one, a Fergie one. That one against McCoy scored against Celtic when David Robertson gets sent off and we were down to 10 men.
Blowing the rain, lashing the rain.
Aye, at Hampden. I think we had 10 men for about 80 minutes.
6 minutes, David Robertson gets sent off in it. Joe Mully, body check, wrestled Joe Muller or whatever it was.
And McCoy scored and we hung on all night, but we weren't there really. Didn't look like what I can remember back because that long ago. We didn't even look like we're going to get beat because that's what we done back then under Walter, do you know what I mean? But one of the ones annoys me is the Scottish Cup final they won against us the time we signed Mo Johnson. And they didn't, I wasn't there shy, but they took it anyway and scored off it. Remember that?
Joe Muller scored that.
That always pisses me off. But these things happen. But
I'll get a good one back then.
Cottenham scored against them in the cup.
Who?
Cottenham.
That was that League Cup. Maybe the League Cup. I can't remember. I think it was the League Cup.
Do you know what I remember about that goal? That Bert Conterman. My dad hated Bert Conterman. Just didn't like him. And we were sitting there. We were watching. It was very good thing because watching the games when I was younger, guys. There was no such thing as Rangers on TV. Very, very rarely. So it was always radio. So we were always listening to radio, and then you had to wait for 5 minutes because you could hear the fans, and you were going, "Fuck, that's the wrong game. That's Derby playing Southampton or something." So you had to go again, find Scottish or Scotland, the BBC Scotland, till you got the matches. But that one was on TV, and I remember because obviously it was against them, and Hampton was actually, I don't know why, but Hampton was quite empty for that one for some reason. If you look back, at the footage of Bert Conterman's goal, the stands were quite empty. But Bert Conterman, I just remember my dad going, as soon as he got the ball, he was, "Not that fucking Bert!" And I'll never forget that moment, mate, to the day I die. I swear to God, absolutely fantastic. Big Bert Conterman. Who'd have thought he had that in him?
Aye, scored a cracker. There's tons. I'm not going to. The one that sticks out to me will always be Albert's dancing through them in that 2-0 semi-final at Parkhead. And I suppose the other one that jumps out to me is a more recent one when Scott Arfield scored in the semi-final. I was right behind it in Hampden before, was it the own goal? Fashion Sakala goal, own goal, whatever we want to call it, which took us into the final after just come back from a massive, was it the Braga game? I'd come back to 120 minutes against Braga, whatever it was. It was some massive thing in the extra time again. So that's probably the one that sticks in my head. Tons of goals. Scott, you going to say something? Your sound's been off. I don't know what's happened there.
You can't really forget Barry Mackay scoring.
I know. There's been tons. That
changed history right enough because they sacked the only Dial-A-Mate and get Brendan Rodgers, didn't they?
Worst thing ever happened to us. So anyway.
I didn't even win the bloody thing anyway. Typical Rangers. I told you. We'll get you here, boys, and then.
So hopefully we're here and stay there on Sunday night, and then back in Monday night to celebrate being into the semi-final Scottish Cup, where we should be big favourites for the tournament, given who's left in it. Although it's never as straightforward as that. Thank you, William, for joining us again. Always a pleasure having you on. I've seen somebody saying Ricky's place is now in doubt.
No, guys, I love coming on here. As you know, it's the same as I say, you're just like ourselves, guys. We just enjoy the crack, have a bit of a laugh and a banter, and especially the ones commenting and stuff, which are a lot of the same ones that comment on ours. So it shows you how similar the two pods are, guys, because we're a loyal, same sort of loyal following on both. So thank you, and you know yourselves, I'm always, if I'm available, I love coming on.
And just when I see that, it just made me think, is John constantly commenting yours now? He's able to do it. Now he's no longer banned.
Oh, that's him. He's on now, man. He's all sorted. He hit the subscribe button.
Good, John. And so, anyway, Friday night, let's all leave it there. So we will hopefully a good result on Sunday. We will back in Monday night to either dissect it positively or be much in tears. We'll see where that goes over the next couple of days. So I will wave to you across because we've been moved from our seats, Scott. You're over in the club deck. I'm over in the Govan rear, sorry. So I will try to wave over. See this big six.
I'm a club deck. So I'm getting up tomorrow.
I know up those stairs. Stop halfway through. Right. Anyway, we'll leave it there. So thank you everybody for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye now.